Welcome to the show. Pennsylvania Senator Fetterman is back, and frankly, it's a little tough to watch. The Trump-era Title 22 immigration rule is due to expire next month, and border officials are all but saying, get ready for the chaos. And the mayor-elect of Chicago is still making excuses for the massive rioting we just saw recently in that city. The Trump-era Title 42 immigration rule is expiring next month.
Secretary Mayorkas, you and I have talked about Title 42 for about 18 months. And I've asked you the question, what happens when Title 42 goes away? And for 18 months, you've said, we're working on it. Well, Judge Sullivan just stepped in and unilaterally canceled out Title 42. So we're in this very odd situation right now where DHS is in one court asking to extend Title 42 a little longer, and in another court asking to cancel Title 42 altogether. But we're still waiting to try to figure out what happens now and how many people are about to cross the border. What's the plan for dealing with this mass migration, illegal immigration coming now post-Title 42?
Senator, what we requested of Judge Sullivan in the District Court of D.C. was an orderly wind-down period of 35 days, and which was unopposed and which was granted by the court. What we are doing is precisely what we announced we would do in April of this year, and we have indeed been executing on the plan. It's a six different lines of effort, and I will review them very, very quickly given the limited time. Surging resources to the southern border, including personnel, technology, facilities capabilities, and transportation, medical support. 2, increasing our Customs and Border Protection processing efficiency to mitigate potential overcrowding. We've been digitizing, for example, our electronic A files, the immigration files, when individuals are placed in proceedings. We are 3, enhancing the consequences for unlawful entry, especially with respect to individuals who seek to evade law enforcement, including removal, detention, and criminal prosecution when warranted. 4, we are seeking to bolster the capacity of nonprofit organizations, state and local officials, and working very closely with them. 5th, we are targeting and disrupting the smuggling organizations and the transnational criminal organizations. In fact, we have effected more than 5,000 arrests and more than 6,000 disruption events. And that means arrests of individuals, the breakdown of smuggling of stash houses, the seizure of the instrumentalities that these smuggling organizations use. And 6, we're working with our partners to the south to deter irregular migration. And I spoke earlier in response to Ranking Member Portman's question about the fact that this is a tremendous hemispheric challenge. We are seeing the movement of people, and the demographics of the population that we are encountering at the border has changed dramatically.
Please welcome President of Citizens for Self-Governance and Convention of States Action, Mark Meckler. Mr. Meckler, the Secretary says, hey, we're on top of it.
Well, I have to say, Larry, if they were actually doing all the things he said they're doing, I'd probably be pretty pleased with the administration. However, those are just words. If you look at the results at the border's wide open. The cartels are in control of both sides of the border. Fentanyl deaths are at record highs. Sex trafficking, actual just slavery in the United States exists all over the country because of the lack of action of this administration. So a lot of nice words and very little in the way of action.
He has said on more than one occasion, as you know, under oath, the border is secure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what his idea of security is. I would say that he's perjured himself before Congress on multiple occasions. I think he ought to be impeached. I think likely he ought to be in jail. And I would say most important is that he's responsible for the deaths of literally tens of thousands of Americans. 1 every 7 minutes dies of a fentanyl overdose or poisoning, and that blood is on his hands.
I remember the former Homeland Security Secretary, Jay Johnson, said that he gets a report on his desk every morning about how many illegal aliens enter the country. He says, if it's under 500, I'm going to have a good day. If it's over 1,000, I'm going to be in a bad mood all day, and my staffers know it. We're talking about 7,000 a day now.
Yeah, these numbers are extraordinary, and they constitute an invasion, literally an invading force pouring across our southern border. I live here in Texas. It's particularly heinous in Texas. We see the effects on our ranching community, in our schools, in our hospitals. But at this point, Larry, there's so many illegals that poured across the border, so much transnational crime. Every state in the United States is now a border state.
Mark, tell me what the rationale here is. I know they hated Donald Trump and felt that everything Donald Trump did was racist, and so therefore they convinced themselves that we need to reverse everything the man has done. But after seeing the results, after watching Fox News and watching Bill Melugin do report after report after report, you think at some point they would say, "Oh my God, what have we done?" But I don't see that.
No, okay. And I don't think there's a single motive. Look, I think there are those who actually seek the complete reorganization of the United States, a downfall, a reorganization, some kind of new world order. I think there are those that see it as a voting bloc, a future voting bloc for the Democrat Party. And then I think there are folks that just think that this is the quote unquote humane thing to do, that we should open our borders to everybody who wants to come here. And the lack of humanity is extraordinary. The pain being imposed not just on American citizens, but on immigrants. At least 30% of women raped or assaulted along the way, young girls and young boys being sold into sexual slavery, families being destroyed by fentanyl. Anybody that thinks that this is the humane thing to do is actually doing the exact opposite.
What does he mean by an orderly rundown, wind down of Title 42? What does that mean?
Now, I think of what it actually means, again, more just word salad. What it actually means is we're just going to throw the border open even more widely than it has been in the past. There's no such thing as an orderly wind down of Title 42. Title 42 was a very blunt instrument and a very strong tool to force migrants back into Mexico, to keep them from crossing the border illegally. Millions of them have been turned back under Title 42. Those millions will now be allowed entry by this administration.
So the policies that the Biden administration reversed include watering down Title 42. Now it's going to go away. They reversed the Stay in Mexico program. They've reinstituted catch and release. What are some other things that they did that reversed what Donald Trump did on the border?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is they quit building the wall. And so we were on our way to having a border that was secured by a physical barrier almost for the entire distance. We have the longest continuous border with Mexico here in Texas. And I can tell you, they will show you film of the wall and say, look, we have a wall. If you turn 100 yards to your left, you can see where the wall ends, and you can see the illegal immigrants just streaming around the wall. So I think one of the biggest is a failure to complete building the wall.
Mm-hmm. Mark, I think another explanation might be the following. We let a bunch of illegal aliens come in here, and at some point, the Republicans will say, uncle, and they'll agree to come to the table for some sort of massive amnesty program, and we'll put so much pressure, have so many people coming in, we'll say, we'll reinstate this policy and that policy if you come to the table and give us a massive amnesty program.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this is a political bargaining chip, and I do think it's a way that Democrats believe that they can get permanent control of the system. They see these people coming in, ultimately becoming citizens, all voting Democrat, and this is their goal, which is uniparty control of the United States.